I still remember that morning like it's stitched into my skin. The kind of memory that refuses to fade, no matter how quietly life moves afterward. The sky was soft gray, the street empty except for the sound of distant engines. My coffee steamed against the glass of the window, and for a moment, everything looked perfectly ordinary. I was 59 and people told me I looked younger. But it never felt like a compliment, more like a reminder that time was waiting for me just beyond the mirror. I worked out, ate clean, smiled when I had to, but inside, there was a silence I couldn't fix. It followed me through each morning like an invisible shadow. Then there was Tyler, the delivery guy with the easy grin and restless energy. He must have been 24, full of motion, always in a hurry but never rude. Every time the doorbell rang, I told myself it was just another delivery. But my heart would skip, and I'd order one more thing online. Books I didn't read, candles I didn't need, just for that knock on my door. That morning, I stepped outside with my mug, pretending to check the mail. Tyler was 2 houses away, strapping a box onto his motorcycle. He waved when he saw me, and I smiled back, trying to look casual. Then, out of nowhere, his tire hit a patch of gravel. The bike wobbled, slid, and he went down hard. The mug fell from my hand before I even realized it. "Tyler!" I ran. His knee was bleeding, his elbow scraped raw. He tried to laugh it off. "Rebecca, I'm fine, really." I shook my head. "No, you're not. Come inside. I have a first aid kit." He hesitated, the way young men do when pride gets in the way of pain. But I wasn't asking. I was already helping him lift the bike onto the sidewalk. He finally gave in, limping beside me to the house. Inside, I guided him to the couch. My hands trembled as I cleaned the wound, so I steadied them deliberately. The smell of antiseptic filled the air, but under it was something else. His cologne, faint and fresh. "You really don't have to fuss over me," he said, smiling again. "Don't flatter yourself," I teased, though my voice came out softer than I meant. "You fell right in front of me. I couldn't just walk away." He watched me for a second longer than was polite, then looked down, his expression caught between gratitude and something else. "Most people just want me to drop the package and leave," he said quietly. "Then they don't see what I see," I answered before I could stop myself. "You've got this energy, like life hasn't worn you down yet." He chuckled, shy but curious. "And you, Rebecca, you sound like you've seen too much life." "Maybe I have," I said, "but I still like what I see when I look out the window." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was charged like the air before rain. When our hands brushed as I placed the bandage, the space between us changed shape. He inhaled sharply but said nothing. I stood to put the kit away, needing distance, needing air. But his voice stopped me. "You always this kind to strangers?" I turned, meeting his gaze. "Only when they fall in front of me." He laughed then, the sound warm and disarming. For a moment, I forgot I was supposed to act like the older one, the sensible one. The moment stretched. Too long, too real. Finally, he said, "My apartment's far from work. The commute's killing me. Been thinking of moving, but rents are crazy." Without thinking, I blurted out, "There's a small unit next to my house. It's empty. You could rent it. Cheap." The words hung in the air, heavier than I expected. He blinked, surprised. "Rebecca, that's wow. You don't even know me." "Maybe I'd like to," I said before reason caught up. His smile softened, unsure yet sincere. "I'll think about it." He stood, testing his knee. "Thanks for the rescue," he said, voice low. I watched him walk to the door, sunlight outlining his shoulders. As he turned back to wave, something inside me shifted, small, quiet, but real. I knew that my routine life had just cracked open, and whatever was coming next would change everything. The sound of his motorcycle fading down the street lingered long after he was gone. I pressed a hand to my chest and whispered, "What are you doing, Rebecca?" But a tiny part of me already knew the answer. The next morning, the sound of an engine pulled me to the window again. Tyler had returned, this time in a small truck with 2 friends. My heart leapt before reason had time to catch up. He really had taken the offer. They unloaded boxes, laughing and teasing each other while I watched from behind the curtain like a teenager with a secret. Sunlight fell across his back as he lifted a heavy crate. There was something effortless about the way he moved, strength wrapped in youth. I told myself I was just making sure everything was fine, but when he looked up and caught me watching, I froze. Then, slowly, he smiled. I poured coffee into a thermos and went outside to cover my fluster. "You must all be exhausted," I said with a calmness I didn't feel. "Come in for dinner later. I'd like to thank you for helping him move." His friends laughed. "That's kind of you, ma'am, but we've got a long drive back." They waved and left before I could respond. Tyler stayed behind, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Guess it's just me," he said. "Then I'll save you a plate," I replied. He smiled again, and for some reason, that simple gesture felt like a promise. By evening, the knock on my door came softly but sure. I had changed twice, settled on a simple black dress, something modest yet quietly confident. When I opened the door, Tyler stood there holding a bottle of wine. "I thought it might go with dinner," he said. "That depends," I answered, taking the bottle with a faint smile. "Are you any good at conversation?" He laughed. "I deliver words all day. I think I can handle a few more." We ate in the glow of warm lights and soft background music. I hadn't realized how lonely the house had become until his voice filled it. The conversation wandered. His childhood in a small town, the long hours on the road, my old job I'd left behind. There was no pretense between us, only ease. When the wine began to loosen our words, I said quietly, "You know, loneliness is a strange thing. It doesn't shout. It whispers." Every night, he looked up, eyes sincere. "Yeah, I know that sound." His tone made me forget the age between us. "I used to think loneliness was something only old people carried," I said, smiling faintly. "But maybe it just finds whoever listens long enough." "That's unfair," he said, leaning forward. "You shouldn't be alone, Rebecca. You've got this grace. Everything about you feels intentional." The compliment caught me off guard. I tried to deflect with humor. "Intentional? That's a polite way of saying old-fashioned." He shook his head. "No, it's what people lose when they rush through life. You haven't." Silence followed, soft but charged. His gaze lingered longer than it should have. For a moment, I felt the world slow around us. I rose to clear the dishes just to breathe, but he stood too, helping me carry the plates. When our fingers brushed, the spark was back, quiet, undeniable. I placed the dishes down, aware of my heartbeat echoing in my ears. "Tyler," I said carefully, "you don't have to say things you don't mean." "I'm not," he replied, steady. "You're easy to talk to, easy to be around. I like that." He wasn't flirting. He was confessing in the simplest way possible. When we sat again, the air had changed. The distance between us was smaller now. He turned his glass in his hand, studying the wine. "I didn't think moving here would feel like starting over," he murmured. "It always does," I said softly. "New places bring old parts of us back." He looked at me then, eyes searching, like he wanted to ask something but couldn't. "Rebecca," he said finally, voice low, "why did you really offer me that apartment?" The question hit me deeper than I expected. I searched for an easy answer and found none. Maybe I wanted company. Maybe I wanted to help. Maybe... I paused, meeting his gaze. I just wanted to feel something again. He didn't look away. "You have," he said quietly. The room seemed smaller, the night quieter. Every sound, the clock, the faint hum of the fridge, faded beneath the weight of that truth. I wanted to speak, to break the spell, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I reached for my glass, pretending to sip, but my hand trembled. Tyler reached out, steadying it with his. "Hey," he said softly. "You don't have to explain. That one gesture, simple, kind, and unguarded, felt more intimate than anything I had known in years. And just like that, I knew the distance between our doors was nothing compared to the distance we were about to cross. The days that followed carried a rhythm I hadn't felt in years. The sound of Tyler's footsteps on the gravel each morning, the brief hellos, the small talk about weather or packages, it all became part of my world. There was comfort in that simplicity, like the calm before a storm you secretly want to arrive. One evening, rain had begun to fall. the kind that soaks the world in silver. I stood by the window, watching it blur the lights of the street. Then came a knock. I didn't need to look to know who it was. "Power's out in my place," Tyler said, standing at the door, hair wet, jacket dripping. "Mind if I wait here till it comes back?" I smiled. "Come in before you catch a cold." He stepped inside, shaking off the rain. The power flickered again, then died completely. Candlelight replaced it, soft and flickering between us. The shadows danced on the walls, making the house feel smaller, warmer. "You always keep candles ready?" he asked, smiling. "I used to hate darkness," I said. "Then I realized it has a way of telling the truth." He looked at me curiously. "What truth?" "That sometimes we see more clearly when we stop trying so hard." We both laughed quietly. But something in that laughter opened a door neither of us could close. He sat on the couch beside me, closer than usual. The silence was thick but gentle, filled with things unsaid. I could feel the warmth from where our knees almost touched. "You know," he said softly, "I didn't think I'd stay long when I moved here." "What changed your mind?" "You did." The words came out simple, unpolished, honest. I turned to look at him. There was no hesitation in his face, only that same quiet sincerity that had drawn me in from the start. "I'm not sure what this is," I said, my voice low. "I just know it feels real." "That's enough for me," he answered. A gust of wind rattled the windows, making the candles tremble. His eyes reflected the flame's soft light, and for a heartbeat, it felt like the entire world existed inside that room. I reached for the blanket draped over the armrest and handed it to him. "You'll catch a chill." He smiled but didn't take it. Instead, he lifted a corner and said quietly, "There's room for both of us." It wasn't an invitation. It was understanding. Two people standing at the same edge, uncertain but willing. We sat beneath that shared warmth, not speaking, not needing to. The clock ticked faintly, marking the seconds we'd remember long after. I rested my head on his shoulder. His breathing was slow, steady, grounding. My heart followed that rhythm, and for the first time in a long time, I felt calm. "Rebecca," he murmured after a while. "You know what's strange?" "What?" "That sometimes the people who fix our loneliness are the ones who were never supposed to stay." I lifted my head, studying him. "And what if they do stay?" He smiled faintly. Then maybe loneliness wasn't meant to be fixed, just shared. The simplicity of his words disarmed me. I wanted to reply, to tell him how much those words mattered, but all I could manage was a whisper. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," he said, "but it's worth trying." We sat like that until the rain eased and the power returned. The lights blinked back to life, harsh and bright, cutting through the soft gold of the candlelight. Neither of us moved. The spell was broken, but the connection stayed. He stood, stretching slightly. "I should go," he said, voice hesitant. I nodded, though a part of me didn't want him to leave. "Good night, Tyler." He paused at the door, turning back. "Rebecca, yes? Thanks. For letting me in. For more than just tonight." And then he was gone. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains. The world outside looked the same, but everything inside me had shifted. I walked to the window and saw him across the yard, already heading out for work. He looked up, saw me, and raised his hand in a small wave. I waved back, smiling. Maybe it wouldn't last forever. Maybe it wasn't meant to, but for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Some connections don't need promises. They just need courage. The kind that shows up at your door when you least expect it. And that, I realized, was enough. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Sometimes love doesn't ask for forever, only for presence.